أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سورة أنزلناها وفرضناها وأنزلنا فيها آيات بينات لعلكم تذكرون. My dear respected elders and brothers, mothers and sisters, we are starting today Surah An-Nur. Surah An-Nur is the 24th surah in the Quran, and it is in the 18th para, 18th juz. Surah An-Nur is Madaniyah, which we have explained before. It means that these ayat were revealed not necessarily in Medina, which most of them are, but a more general meaning and more encompassing meaning of what these ayat are is that these ayat were revealed after Hijrah. After the Hijrah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, these ayat were revealed. And I've told you the reason before. There are some ayat that were revealed after Hijrah but happen to be in the Mecca Mukarramah. Those ayat which deal with the Fathu Mecca when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was there, taking over Mecca. So ayats came down. So those ayat are also called Madaniyah. Even though they hadn't revealed in Medina, they were revealed in Mecca, but they were revealed after Hijrah. So that's the reason why we bring a more encompassing meaning of Madaniyah, which means those ayat which were revealed after the Hijrah. And Makkiyah obviously will be before Hijrah. Surah An-Nur, the reason why it's called Nur is the Ayatul Nur, which will come later on. Allahu Nuru Samawati wal Ard, will do it when it comes. That's the reason why it's been called that. And this is a very incredible surah because this surah, it deals, and this khususiyat is with iffat. And iffat means modesty. It teaches the communities and especially the ladies, because it is mentioned, and Mufassir have mentioned, that Umar radiallahu anhu, in the time of his khilafat, he sent a letter to Kufa. And in that letter, he specifically instructed the males and also the females to learn it, but more the males, that Allimu nisa'akum Surat An-Nur. Teach your lady folk Surat An-Nur. Of course, a person, and these days, with all of the rhetoric and all of the, we have to be careful what we say, and why teach the ladies Surah An-Nur? What about the men? Doesn't mean that the men don't have to learn Surah An-Nur. Even Aisha rida anha, the mother of the believers, it's also been related from her that she had mentioned also that teach your ladies Surah An-Nur. So it's not only Umar rida anhu, he's not being, what do you call, a male chauvinist or something like that, or just looking down at the ladies. And he was tough on the ladies for good reason. But also Aisha rida anha, who can criticize her, the mother of the believers and the leader, one of the leaders of the ladies in Jannah, and definitely a role model for all our women, she also had mentioned to make sure to teach the ladies this surah. And the reason why they are saying this, and the reason why Allah Ta'ala approaches this also, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not a politician. He does not fear the consequences or the opinions of people. Wallahu la yastahi min al-haq. Allah Ta'ala, He is not shy from what the truth is. And in regards to modesty, iffat, and family structure, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is clearly and openly saying that the leader of that and the one who is the main figure of that is the woman. It's the woman. And Allah Ta'ala will not work His way up the mountain, but He will come from the top down in this surah. He starts off, first of all, with zina, the fornication, and the harsh punishment of the fornication. And then after that, Allah Ta'ala will work His way towards the avenues of zina, the ways that a person can reach the zina, and the avenues and the ways that a person goes towards fornication. That's going to be in the surah later on. And then the accusation of fornication is also going to be dealt with the qissatu ifkum mubin, the qissa of Aisha, the story of Aisha anha, which will be coming, inshallah, next week. We will do that story, the story of Aisha anha, and Allah Ta'ala has dedicated more than a ruku to our mother, the mother of believers and the beloved wife of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Aisha radiallahu anha. So this surah, its khususiyat and its speciality is dealing with the modesty, the iffat and the family structure. And it goes right to the root. Because when we have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaching us, so all of the nafs and the desires is turned away. Allah ta'ala has no nafs and no desires. There's no purposes for Allah ta'ala that He needs to do something for a certain reason. Allah ta'ala is going to cut right to the point and go right to the root of the matter and is going to tell us what we need to do. So in this surah, Allah ta'ala brings some very harsh realities, and also because zina and fornication is hated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's disliked. And Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, who is our creator and knows what is good for us, He will very harshly, since He hates it, He will very harshly deal with zina and speak about the punishments in the sharia of what a person who gets involved in zina and fornication, what would happen to that person. Allah Ta'ala will also tell us about that in this surah as well. The opening of the surah is very incredible also. It starts off like no other surah. Allah Ta'ala says, Suratun anzalnaha. That this is a surah. Suratun actually means hadihi suratun. In Arabic we say, this is a surah. But hadihi has been left out. In the Arabic language, one of the purposes of i'jaz and eloquence is that you should be short with your words. Your words should be mukhtasar and abbreviated. There shouldn't be any words that are not needed there. So the Arab, they understood hadihi, this. We don't say that in English. We don't say this desk and that, the desk and that. We quickly speak. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says surah. This is a surah, anzalnaha, which we have sent down. So we can already see the emphasis because every surah Allah ta'ala sent down. That's something that is clear. If we're reading it, it's a surah. Obviously Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala has sent it down. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is emphasizing to us. For example, if you give your son some money and the envelope is quite big and he has to bring it somewhere, so you tell him, I'm giving you this money. Right? And obviously, even if he's a kid, he knows, and if he's a smart aleck, he'll tell you that, duh. Right? He'll say, of course, Dad, you're giving me it, you're handing it to me. Why are you telling me that you're giving it to me? Do we have to explain everything now? If he's a smart aleck. If he's a smart kid, and you leave the aleck out, and you leave the smart kid, then he will understand and take it, put it somewhere protective, and know that I have to deliver this money to a certain place. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the same way is mentioning, Suratun anzalnaha. This is a surah which I revealed. I revealed all the surahs, but this one, make sure you specially take care of it. Anzalnaha, we have revealed it. وَفَرَضْنَاهَا, and we have specified, we have enjoined it, we have specified it. Here also, there are some words which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has left out for brevity. وَفَرَضْنَاهَا مِنَ الْأَحْكَامِ, and we have specified the surah with laws and rules. That's why some of the Mufassirin call this Surah Al-Ahkam. It's a surah of ahkam, of laws and rules which we have to abide by and follow. وَأَنزَلْنَا فِيهَا آيَاتٍ بَيِّنَاتٍ, and because many of these rules will be hard for you to swallow, and they're very tough and strong rules, and Allah Ta'ala is going straight to us. Allah Ta'ala says, we have revealed in it very clear signs. Allah Ta'ala will show us very clearly the hikmat and the wisdom, why these things are treated like this in Islam. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ, so that you may take heed. You may learn. تاکہ تم نصیحت حاصل کرو, so that you can take that advice and you can understand these rules and apply it to your life. So this is Surah An-Nur. We can already see the first ayat is something incredibly different than the other surahs which we've done. Now Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will start off with the fornication. The ahkam and the rules of a man or a woman who fornicate. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts it off here and mentions it because this is one, and not only, but one of the main things that destroy the community of the human being. Though people will reject it and say, no, it's all right, I can have a girlfriend. In America we have girlfriends and boyfriends and this, that. But of course, destruction of the community and things that are going the wrong way, sometimes people just don't even understand when you show them it. In America, of course, a large percentage of the children are born out of wedlock. They don't have fathers. Sometimes the state is such that they don't have a mother also. The mother gives birth and the father has to take care of them. And this imbalance in the family, it causes a lot of difficulty and a lot of problems. It's well known, and many of you have studied psychology and you've studied caseworks much more than me. Murderers, pedophilers, the evilest of people in this country and in this world, when a person takes a step back and looks at what are some of the difficulties that person had. So it will go back to imbalance in parenting, had no father around, there was no mother around, raised by the grandparents, born out of wedlock, I never knew my father. Or sometimes it's even such that the person himself is not like that, has a mother and father, but he himself later on has gotten involved in fornication. And there's a drive in him to have intercourse and to try to seek out women and girls, or the other side of women may be doing it also, where they're trying to seek out boyfriends and men. And this whole, what we call an udu chakar, is going all around. The basis of most of the things that are going around is based on zina. The drive for money, right? People want to make money so they can have ladies. The drive that we have in music, it is based on zina. These rappers and these incredible movie singers and all these things, they're not talking about happily being married. Right? They're talking about the girl next door, the boy next door, and this one's hot, and he's hot, and she's hot, and everyone's hot, and we're all hot. And this is what they're talking about. And this is the whole thing is just revolving around this zina, fornication. Now if we cut to the root and we were to get rid of fornication, and if it was to become, so to say, a crime, and if it was something that a person would be scared to do, then we would see a lot of the difficulties and the problems going away. Not all of them, because there are other problems, of course. But one of the roots and one of the sources of many of the problems is this drive. Because insan, inna nafsa la'ammaratun bisu. If you leave him to himself, and you leave him by himself to travel and discover his own nafs and desires, so he has that desire for the lady. If it's not regulated through hidayah and guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but Allah ta'ala establishing around him certain laws and rules. For example, we have laws against theft in America. So therefore, theft is not as common as it is if we didn't have any laws for it. Imagine if there was no laws for theft. If theft was something that was not considered a sin, and you can do it. So our cars would be gone when we went outside now. After Isha Salat, our cars would be gone. The books would be gone. Everyone would be stealing. But because there's some laws about it, murder, there's some laws about it. When there's no laws for murder, people kill for no reason. He looked at me the wrong way, I'll kill him. But when there's laws for it, and the government is involved, and there's people watching over, so this is also lends strength to a person abstaining from these terrible and grave sins. This is what we call Sharia. In this country, we don't have it, of course, nor can we bring Sharia here. So these conversations that we're going to have, obviously, is not for America. Then now we're going to start stoning people in the back of Hamza Masjid. We're going to set up the Sharia courts. It's not about that. Don't misunderstand it. This is in a government which would be Sharia, a Khalifa, and these would be some of the rules that he would establish, which are the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's start the second ayat and see. الزانية والزاني فاجلدوا كل واحد منهما 100 جلدة ولا تأخذكم بهما رافة في دين الله إن كنتم تؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر وليشهد عذابهما طائفة من المؤمنين. In this ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first, in translation of it, الزانية والزاني, the fornicating woman, والزاني, and the fornicating man. فَاجْلِدُوا كُلَّ وَاحِدٍ مِّنْهُمَا, each one from amongst both of them, whip them. 100 جلدة, 100 strikes, 100 whippings. وَلَا تَأْخُذْكُمْ بِهِمَا رَأْفَةٌ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ, and do not let it overcome you. وَلَا تَأْخُذْ, do not let it overcome kum you, bihima, in regards to both of them, ra'fatun, any pity. Fi dinillahi, because of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the religion of Allah ta'ala, in kuntum tu'minuna billah, if it is such that you believe in Allah ta'ala, wal yawm al-akhir, and you believe in the last day, wal yashhad adabahuma, and also it should be such that it witnesses the punishment of both of them, a group from amongst the believers. So this is the translation of the ayah. Going into the meaning of it, az-zaniyatu waz-zani. Here there's an incredible point the Mufassir have mentioned, that usually when it has to do with the ahkam and the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so many a time Allah ta'ala uses the words Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe. And there are other ahkam and other rules which Allah ta'ala addresses the man first. For example, as-sariqu was-sariqatu. When Allah ta'ala talks about the thieves, He says the man who thieves, the man who steals, and the woman who steals. But when it came to fornication, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so to say, flips the script. No, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, the man is not first, but Allah ta'ala mentions the fornicating woman first. Now why does He do that? The ulama say there's two reasons. One reason possibly could be that because the people who establish the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and forget about even the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala establishing that, in our regular day-to-day dealings with ladies, so the lady is a very affectionate, loving being, which usually it takes a very stern and very harsh man to do anything tough to her. She's a lady. Of course, there are some who are in the MMA and stuff like that who can beat you up. That's different. That's a needle in a haystack. But most women, it takes a very harsh and terrible person to do anything, any harm to her. So Allah Ta'ala mentioned the lady first as an address to those people who are establishing these rules, that do not make sure that your mercy and your softness towards ladies does not make you not follow the command of Allah Ta'ala in regards to when she does any fornication. So for that reason, Allah Ta'ala mentions the lady first to emphasize that yes, the lady, if she fornicates, she will also have this type of punishment, which is harsh and looks like a punishment that only a man would get, but she'll get it also. That's one reason. Another reason Mufassirin mentioned is that the lady in her nature, and we can understand it from the ayat I said before, as-sariq was-sariqatu. Allah Ta'ala addresses the men first in regards to thieving and stealing, because men usually, they do this type of thing, they steal. They are in the market areas. They're the ones jumping over walls and stealing and doing crazy things. So Allah Ta'ala addresses them first because most of the time the theft is done by them. But in regards to zina, it's not the same that most of the time zina is done by the lady. But Allah Ta'ala has put in the lady a higher level of haya, a higher level of modesty and shame than He has put in the man. The man, there's reasons why he's been given 4 wives, and there's reasons why there's purdah. It's not for the ladies. The ladies are fine. Most of the 9 out of 10 ladies are fine, and usually when they look at a man, they'll find the faults in him right away. He's got a big nose, lips are funny, he's got some funny eyes, and he's not a... Ladies can look at a man without any physical attraction. But a man, very rarely he will look at a lady and not think about some type of physical attraction. زُيِّنَ النَّاسُ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ. Allah Ta'ala says that we have made for the man the love of the beauty of the women. Opposite, it hasn't been said that now the lady has an attraction towards the man. There's an attraction there, but it's not like the man has for the woman. Man's a very dangerous person when it comes to zina and things like this. So the man, he's prone to do these type of things. But when the lady goes and does it, with the amount of haya that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given her, and in most cases in fornication, you will have to get the permission from the lady in order to fornicate. Right? That's why for some people fornication is difficult. So they resort, na'udhu billah, to rape and things like this. But you won't find on the newspaper, and sometimes on the side, one small article, but you won't find that the man has become raped. Right? Yesterday some man was stopped in the street and he was raped. Right? Sometimes a man will say that, wow, if you read that, he'd say, I wish I was that guy. People say, the man got raped. Wow, what kind of man is that? We've been looking for that for years. A person might say that. But you see all the time, the woman is raped, the woman is raped, the woman is raped. Why? Because it is the man who has that drive towards her, and it's the woman who's stopping him out of her haya and saying, no, that haya is fitri, and it is natural in the woman. For her to leap over that fitrah and that nature, and to fight it, and to go against it, and open the doors of zina, and open the doors of fornication, for that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned her first. That if fornication happens, it's not more of a sin in you, but we didn't expect this from you as much as we expected it from the man. Therefore, the zikr of it and the mention of it is her first. Now in regards to the punishments, they're the same. The punishments are the same. That's just a nukta and a point that the ulama mentioned in regards to why would the lady be mentioned first. So the lady who fornicates and the man who fornicates, fajlidu, whip them. The word fajlidu comes from the word jaldun. And jald means to whip. We know that the word jild means skin. Jild in the Arabic language, it means bashar, skin. So the reason being that why this is called fajlidu and the word comes, because a person is whipped and it hits his skin. That is the reason. Some ulama also extending on to the meaning of it, and Allah knows best. Also the reason why it's called fajlidu is such a whipping should take place when a person is getting the punishment of fornication, that only it marks the skin. It should not pass the skin and crack open and open the skin and go to laham and scar the person and open up and give him lashes. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam has taught at that time the jallad and the person who's whipping, Nabi sallam showed and taught them how to do it. First of all, there should not be an uqda, a knot on the whip. That now there's a big knot on there and you're striking. And also it's been instructed by Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam that a person should not rev back and go and strike like this. No, it should be a simple strike, like this, without any effort, without any body movement. And also a person should not strike the same place. Try to strike different areas, because a person strikes the same place, then obviously the skin will crack open. These all sound harsh, but this is the law of Sharia. And these are the things that are going to keep a person away from the fornication, which is something in Islam and Aqidah we feel is one of the sicknesses and one of the poisons of our community. So a person will hit like that, and they will do like this. Now, The had of zina itself, it can be established in two ways. One is i'tiraf, admittance, where a person comes to the judge and he says that I have committed zina. In Sharia, he will have to admit that 4 times. 4 times he will have to admit it. One of the hikmahs is that since there's 4 witnesses to establish it, so also a person should say it 4 times as well. And this happened at the time of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. A person named Ma'iz bin Malik, he came to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he told Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, "O Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I have done zina." When Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam heard that, he turned his face. Then Ma'iz came to the other side of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he told him, "I have done zina." Nabi sallallahu turned his face again. And then he came again to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, "I have done zina." Nabi sallallahu turned his face again. On the 4th time, then Nabi told the Sahaba, "Grab him." Even after he grabbed him, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not get the whip and start screaming and start hitting him. It's not like this. There are laws and there are chapters in regards to. It's like a person who looks at the electric chair and says that, "Okay, let's just start frying up everybody." It's like a fried chicken store and all. No, person gets the electric chair, it's like 10 years until he gets the electric chair. Right? He has to go through this thing and that thing has got to be okayed by this. And after 10, 15 years, he gets in the electric chair and the death penalty. In the same way in Islam, it's not that now every corner people are carrying out these things. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam then told him, maybe you just lie down with her. Maybe you don't understand what zina is, what fornication is. Maybe you lie down next to her. Ma'iz said, "Nope." So maybe you just kissed her. Taqabbaltaha. Maybe you just kissed her. He said, "Nope." He said, "Nabi sallam, I did what married people do." We did what married people do. Then Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam after that then established the had on him. And this person, Ma'iz, unfortunately, he was a married man. So the rajm was established on him, the stoning, and we're going to get into that. When he was stoned, then Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after he was stoned, mentioned, لَقَدْ تَابَ تَوْبَةً لو قسمت بين أمة لوسعتها. While he was getting stoned, unfortunately one person had said that, "Look at this person, he's dying the death of a dog." Nabi sallallahu then turned to him and told him that listen, you don't know that this person has done such a tawbah and has asked forgiveness in such a way that if that repentance and that tawbah was spread out amongst a whole nation of people, it would be enough. That's why when a person dies from the had, then it's known amongst the Sharia, we say in our Aqidah, that that person has been forgiven by Allah Ta'ala in Akhirah. That's why these Sahaba, they started coming up and admitting this. This was a great admittance. A person takes a lot of heart to admit that and to die from that. Right after Ma'iz happened, a lady came then to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam finished up with that, then a lady came. And she was pregnant. And she came to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, "I have done zina." Again, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam turned his face 4 times. From this in our Sharia, when a person goes to the court and he wants to i'tiraf, admit that he's done zina, so he has to say it 4 times in order for the qazi to admit, to put the punishment on him. On the 4th time, then that person will be stoned. If at any time before he's stoned, he gets the cold feet and he says, "Listen, I was just joking," or "I didn't do zina, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't," they will release him and tell him, "Go." Because Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, فَضَرَءُ الْحُدُودِ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Try to drop off the had as much as you can. Try not to establish it. Don't now start wanting to do the had. Like it is today, the trademark or the iftitah, the beginning and the opening of any country which starts a Sharia, and all these crazy guys who are saying that we did Sharia and they have the sword and they said we start the Sharia, the first thing they do is chop someone's head off. And mashallah, we got one lady there, and now they're playing baseball with her, and they're throwing the rocks at her. The first thing they do. Halanki, in Islam, it is established on i'tiraf, on admittance. And the second way is through witnesses. And in the tariq of Islam, except for these last 10, 15, 20 years, in the tariq of Islam, ulama have mentioned that the conditions for establishing fornication are so strict that from that side, from witnesses witnessing it and going to the court and accusing a person of it, in the whole tariq of Islam, it's never happened. What are those conditions? In Surah An-Nur and Surah An-Nisa, we did it, that if a person does, if 4 people see them, 4 men, and this is a shahid, this is a witness in the Sharia government, and this is a witness for punishment, so it's not like a witness to nikah, that even if the guy is a funny guy and he's got some type of funny liquor store and he's a, what we call fasiq, an open sinner, even if he's the witness in nikah, it's no problem. But witness in the court, when you come in the court, it has to be a witness who, mashallah, is abiding by the sunnah. They'll do what we call istisfar, where a person will start looking into his background, and a witness check. They say, in Islam we have witness check. Who is this witness? Who's this guy? Does he owe some money to that guy? He's saying that this guy did zina. Is there any debt that they have or something? Some enmity? Maybe he married his girl he wanted to marry. Something's going on maybe. Now 4 of them. 4 witnesses have to see this person doing fornication and in the act of it as well. And when we're talking about in the act of it, the ulama have given a very easy example. They say they will have to see the act as if the dana, the needle for the kuhl, goes inside the bottle and comes out. They will have to see the act of those couples doing that zina like that. 4 pious people. Now where are you going to have 4 pious guys sitting in a window looking and seeing if people doing zina? Where are you going to have that? They're on the ladder now and they're checking and seeing over there what's going on in there. Where are they going to see that? That's why our Satis had mentioned in the Tariq of Islam, our Ustad Mufti Patel, Pura Tariq mein kabhi nahi mila. He said, I haven't found in the Tariq that this had ever been established. Now, of course, in TV, we don't know how this is getting established and what it is. And most of the time, what I've seen the last few years, a few of them that have been established, is from the pregnancy. They will see a person is pregnant, and they will put 1 and 2 together, and then they want to stone her after she gives birth, even though most of the fuqaha have said that through the pregnancy, it won't be established. Only 2 is established by the witnesses or by admittance. Now, there's 2 type of punishments we're dealing with here. One punishment is the punishment for those people who fornicated, but they are not married. This is the first category. And the second category is a person who we call muhsan, a person who's married. And they carried out zina. They did the fornication. It's 2 different ahkam, 2 different rules. Here in this ayat of Quran, it's very clear in regards to those people who are not married. الزاني والزانية فاجلدوا كل منهما 100 جلدة. The hadith of Bukhari also mentions, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has mentioned, Al-bikru bil-bikri 100 جلدة. When the virgin and the other virgin, not necessarily has to be a virgin, but one who is not married. You know what I mean? Someone who's not married. When an unmarried person and another unmarried person, a boyfriend and girlfriend, they do the zina, so they get 100 lashes. So we see that one rule for the had in regards to zina is for those people who are not married, and that is the 100 lashes. Another branch of the rule of zina is for that person who's married, which we call a muhsan, a married person. From there we have from the sunnah, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. We are a ummah who believe in Quran and we believe in the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. If we are Ahlul Quran, then we'll say there's no room for rajam. Like many portions of the ummah have said. There's no rajam, it's from hadith, and it's all hogwash, and there's no such thing as rajam. And we are with you, everybody who is against the stoning. It's a terrible thing. You can't do it. Right? They will say that. We will say that if the Sharia is there and the government is there and they are establishing that, you can do it. And it's not what you people think that now, once we have the rajam, just stones are flying everywhere and everybody's getting their head knocked out with a stone. It's not like that. We have governments, we have laws, we have law books even bigger than them about these things. So, in regards to rajam, it has been established from the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that when this ayat came down, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam himself said, Al-bikru bil-bikri miyatu jannah. وَالثَّيِّبُ بِالثَّيِّب الرَّجْمُ. The one who is now thayyib, who is married, when they fornicate with another married person, then Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has said, then that would be rajm. You have to stone. So some ulama look at it in the way that the tafseer of this ayat of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was extended, its meaning was extended, and it was only the ayats dealing with one person, meaning the one who's not married, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam extended the meaning of the ayat as it's been done. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has extended so much in regards to salat. What is salat? The takbir, the timing, all the things. These are all extensions from the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. When we make wudu, these are the 4 fard of wudu that we do. Washing our feet, our hands, face, arms. What about all the other things? These are all extensions from the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In the same way, in regards to haddu zina, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has extended to its hukum and said that the one who is married, then that person will get rajam. And this comes in a hadith, the hadith of Bukhari also, where one man had came to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and told Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that my son, he was working for one lady as a worker, and unfortunately he did some extra work. He got involved with the lady. He brought his son, and his son admitted to it. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam then told Anas radhiyallahu anhu that bring this lady, and if she recognizes and says that yes, this did happen, so لَأَقْضِيَنَّ عَلَيْهِمَا وَعَلَيْكُمَا كِتَابُ اللَّهِ. I'm going to establish upon both of you the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rasulullah said clearly that I'm going to make my decision from the book of Allah. And what was the decision? Because the boy was not married, so he got 100 whips. He was just working for her. So he got 100 whips. He was an unmarried man who got involved in fornication, and he admitted to it. And in regards to the lady, when she had admitted to it, so she was married. So therefore she got the 100. She got the rajam. She got the rajam because she was married. So in this hadith, we find that both rules were established by Nabi sallallahu in this one incident, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam expressing what he was going to do. لَأَقْضِيَنَّ عَلَيْكُمَا كِتَابُ اللَّهِ. I'm making my decision from the kitab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Other than this, the ulama have mentioned the hadith of Bukhari also, and the khutbah of Umar radiallahu anhu. There's 2 hadith. One hadith mentions about Umar radiallahu anhu, and he mentioned to the people and said, كَانَ مِمَّا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى آيَةُ الرَّجْمِ. From amongst the ayat and the verses that Allah Ta'ala had revealed is Ayatul Rajm. And Umar radiallahu anhu carried on and talked about this ayat, how it's in the kitab of Allah Ta'ala. But yet we don't find any ayat about Rajm in the kitab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why Zayd bin Thabit radiallahu anhu, he mentions in another hadith that from amongst the things we used to recite at the time of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was an ayat, ash-shaykhatu wa-shaykh. The ayat is, of course, the ayat, ash-shaykhu wa-shaykhatu idha zanaya fajlidu, idha zanaya farjimuhuma nakala min Allah. This is what an ayat which we call as mansukh. We've done some of the ayats and talked about this. Some ayats of Quran are abrogated. They have been taken out from the Quran. And there's different stages of abrogation which I talked to you guys about in some of the ayats about mansukh also, nasakh. And one category of the ayats which are abrogated are those ayat that have been taken out from the Quran and we don't read them, but their hukum and their law and their rule is still established. And the best example for that is Ayatul Rajm. Ash-shaykhu wa shaykhatu idha zanaya fajmuhuma nakala min Allah. This was an ayat of Quran. Zayd bin Thabit, Jami'ul Quran, the one who brought the Quran together. Abu Bakr told him first to bring the Quran together, Zayd bin Thabit radiallahu anhu. He's the one that's saying that. At the time of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we used to recite this ayat, but then it was abrogated. We stopped reciting it. It was taken out from the Quran. Some stopped us from reciting it. But the hukum of it and the law of it was still established. So we can see that Rasulullah, there's one of two scenarios. Either Rasulullah, which we don't have a problem with, either Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, as tafseer of the ayat, did the rajam, and he did it verbally also, which I told you the hadith, and also two incidents. Another incident also happened with the lady, Ghamidiyya, the lady from the tribe of Ghamd, which I told you about, or started telling you about. Right after Ma'iz, she came, and she came pregnant, and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, we cannot stone her now and pelt her because the baby is there. The baby is innocent. It's not the baby's fault. So wait till she gives birth. Then she gave birth. They brought it to Nabi sallallahu. Nabi sallallahu said, who's going to nurse this baby? The mother needs to nurse it. Nurse the baby first. When the baby is able to eat, then come back. And it's mentioned that this lady, and if it was us, then first passport, first flight out of there, we would have got out. Right? Get out the country, let's escape. After about a year, when the kid has gone through Fatim and the kid was weaning and gone off the breast of the mother brung the child, and the child had a small piece of bread in its hand. And the mother said that he's eating now. The kid was eating the bread. Nabi Sallallahu then gave one family the child. One Sahabi said, I will take care of this child. He took care of the child. And they put for the lady, this is the sunnah mustahab, that the woman should be covered from her chest. So they dug a hole and covered her from the chest, and then they stoned her. Khalid bin Walid, who of course was a person who was not like a regular man. He'd been through a lot of war. If you talk to a Vietnam vet or a person who has been in a lot of wars and seen a lot of blood, they're not really, they're comfortable with things like this. So he threw one rock at her so hard that the blood had come off of her and on his face. And Khalid bin Walid then cursed her. And he said that, you've stained me, Aduullah. He was in his, and these were Sahaba who had accepted Islam quite early, so they were in their thing and they were following the command of Allah Ta'ala. So he did this, and then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam again said that, oh Khalid, don't say that. She has done such a tawbah, لو تابها, if the same person did tawbah, who was sahibu maksin. Sahibu maks is a person who goes around and taxes people while there's no tax on them. He goes and steals. He goes around your house and says you got a fake IRS guy, basically. And he's taking the money from you and he's stealing from you while you don't owe any taxes and don't own anything to him. If that guy even made tawbah, his tawbah would be accepted. Such a tawbah she made. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam ta'amulan, in his practical life also showed that rajam is there. If a person believes in hadith, mutawatir, and it's clear and known without a doubt that the ayat of rajam and the amal of rajam was there at the time of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If somebody's not establishing an Islamic country or Islamic law is not establishing it, that's a different story. But in regards to Islam, it is there, it's a law, and the Sharia demands that it should take place, of course, in an Islamic country. Non-Muslim countries and other governments, obviously they have their ways of dealing with crimes, and in most countries zina is not even a crime. It's not a crime to fornicate and things like this. So obviously there's a world of difference between the way Sharia is looking at this and the way other governments are looking at it and other ways of the law are looking at it. So that's in regards to فَجْلِدُوا كُلَّ وَاحِدٍ مِّنْهُمَا مِئَةَ جَلْدَةٍ. That it means two things. It means for that person who's not married, 100 whips, and for that person who's married, then that person will get rajam, and that is the stoning, where a person is stoned to death, and the person dies from that. Allah Ta'ala after that mentions, وَلَا تَأْخُذْكُمْ بِهِمَا رَأْفَةٌ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ. Because it's such a harsh law, and it's something hard to swallow, difficult to do, so Allah Ta'ala warns and says that do not let it overcome you pity. Don't feel bad for them. And feeling bad for them meaning that, of course, obviously you'll feel bad for them because they're getting stoned and it's hurting them. But don't feel bad for them in the way that now it stops you from doing this. And also, as we see from the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, these people are getting basically a guaranteed tawbah acceptance. Right? If a person, وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى, all of our belief should be that our akhirat and our hereafter is much greater than this world. So these Sahaba obviously were looking towards the hereafter. What other reason would they have where they would go to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and admit their sin? Obviously, they had a great fikr and a worry that I don't know if my tawbah is going to be accepted here. So where's my way that I can go straight through easy pass and get past into the doors of Jannah and have this sin forgiven? They saw an opportunity through admitting that they had done that mistake, and they were stoned for that. So Allah Ta'ala mentions and says that don't have pity on them. Don't have pity on them. They are in a good condition. Don't worry. Fi deenillah, because of the sake of Allah Ta'ala. Because of the deen of Allah Ta'ala, you're not supposed to have pity for them, because Allah Ta'ala has more pity for them than you. Allah has more rahmah than you. Allah knows the betterment of them more than you. So therefore, because this is part of the deen of Allah Ta'ala, there's no reason why you should be having pity on them. In kuntum tu'minuna billahi wal yawmil akhir, if you are such that you believe in Allah Ta'ala and the last day. If you have that belief, then you should not have pity on them, and you should carry out this law and injunction. Allah Ta'ala then mentions after that, وَلْيَشْهَدْ عَذَابَهُمَا طَائِفَةٌ مِّنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And there should be a group from amongst the believers who watch this happen. They should see it happening, and they should know that this is going on. Even the fuqaha have mentioned that if a person is there, it is wajib for them to throw the stone. The stone is there, they are supposed to, if they are there, they are supposed to throw, because by not throwing, they're trying to say that this is too harsh. Nabi Sallallahu subhanallah rahmatul lil alameen, he took one small stone and he threw at her, and then he walked away. And then he walked away. He couldn't do. But other Sahaba, of course, like Khalid bin Walid and the other ones, they, those are ajib men. And they did it and they carried it out. And this happened to a few people at the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But as I said, i'tiraf to dur hai. Who's going to admit this type of sin? Nobody's admitting, and no one's even admitting these days that it is a sin. Forget about admitting doing the sin. We cannot even get admittance from parts of the ummah that this is a sin. It's only his girlfriend. It's okay. We're getting problems admitting whether zina is a sin or not. So it's probably very far-fetched that we would get someone to admit that they did this sin. And like I said, in the history of Islam, 4 witnesses, shahid, yani those who are salih, seeing the zina taking place, it's very, very difficult to establish. But of course, it is the fear of the punishment in the Sharia that keeps the people away from these things, right? That it's a very harsh punishment. A person will pass a red light so fast, but when that stop sign comes out on the side of the bus, we all know it's like a $400 ticket. We all stop. We pass the red light, we don't see anyone around, it's okay. But that bus comes out and we know why the ticket is so much. And also, what can happen? Maybe you kill a kid. Maybe the kid will come popping out and you'll hit him. So there's murder and things like that involved. So because the punishment is so much, we are very scared of these things. So Allah Ta'ala in His wisdom puts the punishment hard, but at the same time, He also makes the establishment of that punishment and the proof of it very difficult as well. Allah Ta'ala after this mentions, الزاني لا ينكحها إلا زانية أو مشركة والزانية لا ينكحها إلا زان أو مشرك وحرم ذلك على المؤمنين. After mentioning the punishment and the evil of zina, Allah Ta'ala mentions the atharat and the effects of it. That what it makes a person become. So Allah Ta'ala says, الزاني لا ينكح إلا زانية أو مشركة. The person who's involved in the fornication, if he in his fornication nature and he's fornicating and he's doing the intercourse out of wedlock, if he decides to get married, so he will not marry except someone who's like him, a zaniya. Boyfriend and girlfriend, then they get married after that. Right? The zina was done already before marriage. It's not something that now, they say that, we got together. Alhamdulillah, people make tawbah, and the ayat's not talking about the one who's zani and made tawbah, then gets married. It's a different case. If you make tawbah and you pick your wife, and that's a different story. But the person who is zani and is going into marriage and wants to continue that habit also, Allah Ta'ala is speaking about that person. A zani, a fornicating man that continuously is ready to fornicate, he will not marry except someone who's zaniya, a person who's into that filth just like him, or mushrika, or he will marry someone who is a mushrika, a person who's an idolater, because they don't have any restrictions about zina. You do your thing, I'll do our thing. So he marries these type of people. And in the same way, وَالزَّانِيَةُ لَا يَنْكِحُهَا إِلَّا زَانٍ أَوْ مُشْرِكٍ. And the lady who is a fornicator, nobody will marry her except if it's a fornicating man or a person who's an idolater. Only a fornicator will want to marry another lady who's a fornicator. الطيب بالطيب. If a person is pak and a person is clean and modest, they want a modest person. If a person's not, then they're looking for that, Kardashian, they say, right? إِلَّا زَانٍ أَوْ مُشْرِكٍ. They'll only marry the zan or the zan or the mushrik, the fornicating man or the idolater. He will only marry a woman who is in zina. وَحُرِّمَ ذَلِكَ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And this has been forbidden or has been made sinful for the believers. The reason why I brought two translations is because there's a discussion here that حُرِّمَ ذَلِكَ. What is ذَلِكَ going back? Some ulama say ذَلِكَ, which means that has been made forbidden. That is going back to zina. That zina is forbidden. So, by saying that is a little bit far-fetched, because the ayat's not talking about zina, the ayat's talking about a person who's doing zina and wants to marry another person. So here, most of the ulama say that حُرِّمَ ذَلِكَ means it has become forbidden, يعني النكاح بالزاني, or النكاح بالزانية, to marry a person who's a fornicator, or to marry a male who's a fornicator, that is forbidden. Now, hurrima could have two meanings here also. One is forbidden, one is sinful. Because we all know that many nikahs have taken place, and we know in our own communities, and we know that the boy and girl who are sitting there, they were both playing around, and they're not very Islamic. Could be such that they are involved in zina. Sometimes the basis of zina is how they got married. I met her in school, boyfriend, girlfriend, been together 2 years, now we're getting married. Right? Some of them have the kids also already. I've done nikahs of people who have kids already. I've done myself, I've done nikah. I went to one house and they got married, they had 3 kids already. They're doing the nikah and the kids are sitting there. It's ajib. It's a very crazy thing. So we know that these nikahs are done. So by Allah Ta'ala saying, حُرِّمَ ذَلِكَ, are we seeing nikahs that are not valid? So حُرِّمَ ذَلِكَ in regards to two, for example, zanis being married, that would be, we'd say that is sinful. حُرِّمَ here would mean sinful. It's a very sinful thing. Because if a zani marries a zani, or a zani marries a good girl, then of course in Sharia we say that nikah is sahih. The nikah itself is proper. It's a marriage. They are husband and wife. And with his wife, if he has intercourse with her, or if she has intercourse with him, under the marriage and under the nikah, they are not doing zina. They are not doing fornication. So that's in regards to the zani and zaniya. But Allah Ta'ala mentions mushrika here. With the mushrika, we will say that hurrima here means it's forbidden. Because we know that a woman is not allowed to marry a mushrik man, and a man is not allowed to marry a mushrik woman. This is forbidden in Islam. Allah Ta'ala mentions, وَلَا تَنْكِحُ الْمُشْرِكَاتِ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنْ وَلَا أَمَةٌ مُؤْمِنَةٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكَةٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ. Allah Ta'ala says that the men are not, the women are not allowed to, or the men are not allowed to marry, or you men are not allowed to marry idolating women, and until they believe. And if you and the servant, a slave who is a believer, is better than an idolating woman. Even if that idolating woman attracts you, even if you're attracted to her, it's still better that you marry a slave woman, a woman who is a very low category, but she has belief in her. And of course, Allah Ta'ala says in regards to the same thing to the women. So in regards to these two, this ayat, we know that it's not allowed to marry a mushrik. Of course, after that, later on, there is an istisna, there is a exception to the rule in regards to men marrying Ahli Kitab. وَالْمُحْسَنَاتِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ وَالْمُحْسِنَاتِ مِنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابِ. Later on in another surah, Allah Ta'ala says that we can marry the chaste or the moderate or the modest ladies who are believers and the modest ladies amongst the Ahlul Kitab. But in there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that the woman is allowed to do that. So the woman, a Muslim woman, is only allowed to marry a Muslim man. A man is not allowed to marry a disbelieving woman who's a mushrika or has no deen, an atheist. Only woman he can marry who's out of Islam is a Ahlul Kitab, a Jew or a Christian. That's the understanding of those ayat. And in regards to mushrika, or hurrima dhalika al-mu'mineen, that's what it means. Doesn't mean forbidden, but it means that it's a sin. May Allah Ta'ala give us the understanding. This is Surah An-Nur. We only did a couple of ayats. This is how it is. It will carry on like this, where 1-2 ayat will do. It's almost time for the azan, so chai is there. So everybody, I think, wants some chai before the adhan. So brothers can go have the chai, inshallah.